Welcome to another Cakenote tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the canvas tools that are located around the canvas on the designer. So let's go ahead and go to the designer now. So by canvas tools I'm referring to these buttons along here, here, and here. So we'll start from the left hand side here. I'm going to go ahead and add some cakes to the canvas so I've got something to work with. So we'll start with these buttons down here. So these buttons down here will only appear if you have multiple objects selected, otherwise they won't work. These are basically alignment and spacing tools. So if I was to select all three of these, then you would see these buttons appear. So this button here will horizontally align them to the left, which is already the case. This button here will center them all. This one will align them to the right. This button here will align them to the top, which is already the case. This one will make it center horizontally and to the bottom. This button here, horizontal distribute center. So what this does is, it will, if you have multiple objects selected, I'll just add a couple more here. And I think it'll be better if I just make them all the same size, just to show you how it works. Okay, so if I move one of these cakes over here and one of these cakes over here, and I want these other three to be distributed evenly between this one and this one, let's select them all, and I'll use this button here, and you'll see now they're all evenly spaced between each other, from the first to the last one that I've selected. And this one basically does the same thing, but vertically. So if I was to select them all again and click that one, you'll see that they're all evenly spaced vertically. So that's it for the alignment and spacing tools. So now these ones over here, this button here will hide the selected object. It's still in the layers panel, but I can't see it anymore, so it's hidden. If I want to bring any hidden items back, I would just click this button here to unhide all. So when you have a complex design with lots of different elements, you can use this to sort of make things easier. So you can hide a bunch of items to make it easier to see what's going on. Unhide. These two buttons here will actually lock the item. So since there's nothing locked at the moment, that's why this button is disabled, because this button is the unlock all button. So let's say I had a design and I wanted to make sure that I didn't want to move these items. I could select them all and lock them. Now I actually can't select them anymore. So this makes it easy to work with decorations on top of the cake without worrying about accidentally moving the cake. If I want to be able to move them again, then I can just unlock all. And now they're unlocked. These two buttons here are to flip, so you can actually flip this horizontally, and you'll see the shadow go on the other side, and flip it back, and this will flip it vertically. Now the cake's upside down. These buttons here are to basically move objects in front or behind other objects. So if I was to select this cake here and I wanted to move it down, I would just use this one here, and you'll see that it moves down, but this might be a bit confusing because it keeps this one selected, and this is just a bug really, so don't worry too much about that. It actually did move the cake down. You can see 4 standard servings, and if I move it down, you'll see it go down each time I click. So if I was to put all these cakes on top of each other, you could see that more clearly. The one on the very bottom is this one here. Now when you select it, you'll see it comes in front of everything. When you deselect it, it goes back to where it actually is. So this is just to make it easy to see what you're actually selecting. If I select this and I want to move it all the way to the top, I would use this button here. You can see bring to front. And it just moved to the front, so now it's at the front. And this one is to move it all the way to the back. Here, it's gone. This button here is to delete items, so I can just delete that one. You can also select multiple and delete multiple items. This one here you saw me use before, it's a copy button. It basically duplicates whatever you have selected. So if I have a bunch of them selected, I can copy them all together. This button here is a group button, so if I wanted to group these two cakes together, they're now grouped. as one item. And on a group layer, you can see a little arrow here that will drop down and show you all the things within that group. And this button here is to ungroup a group back to individual objects. So this little section here is for undo and redo. It's disabled by default, but if you want to use it, you can just enable it like this. And basically now Cakenote is recording everything I do. So I can actually undo what I do with that and redo. But just keep in mind that if you've got a complex design with lots of different elements, performance will slow down. This is self-explanatory. It says draw mode. So when I switch that on, I can actually draw onto the canvas. And this little panel will appear, which gives you some options for size of the brush that you're using and opacity of the brush, and also color. And to get out of drawing mode, we have to click on this again, go back to edit mode. And then we can actually move around the elements that we've drawn. This button here will allow you to upload an image to the canvas just from your computer. So if I select it, and I can just select any image and upload it, and it will add it to the canvas as a layer, as an image layer, because it has no pricing and it is just an image on the canvas. You can also copy and paste to the canvas as well. I'm just going to use the tool on my Mac to copy an area of the screen here, just to show you. So I've copied that, and you just click on the canvas and press Ctrl V or Command V if you're on a Mac, and it will just paste the image that you've copied onto the canvas, like that. This button here is if you want to download a snapshot of the canvas. So whatever design you've got at the moment, you can just click that button and it'll ask you where you want to save it on your computer. And you can just go ahead and save that as an image onto your computer, like that. This button here will actually save your design as an image to the images library. So basically I can click on this and it'll save a snapshot of the current design into the images library. And I can actually see it straight away if I click on add image, go to on categorized, and I'll see the design I'm currently working on right over here. See that? And I can actually add that back to the canvas as an image, like that. This button here is obviously zoom in and zoom out. And this one here is to center it back to 100% view. This button here will open the background tool, which allows you to change the background of the canvas. It also allows you to add a grid to the canvas. So you can add a 25mm grid or a 50mm grid, like so. Or you can remove it, and you can also change the opacity of the grid, like this. We'll just remove that one. And this final button up here will allow you to basically add an image as a background. Also note that these images come from the backgrounds category from the images library. So if you wanted to add your own backgrounds, that's where you would do it. You would go to the images list and then create new image and add it to the backgrounds category, and then you'll be able to see it from here. And there's also some controls here to change opacity, size, width, height, offset it left and right, or up and down, or remove it. Now these buttons here basically interact with the actual objects that you've got. So if I select the cake and I want to just change the color of this cake, how do I do it? Well, I would use the fill tool, which is right here. So you select the fill tool and it would open up from the side, and you can now select a different color for the cake from here. So this section up here basically controls where you want to apply the fill. So this is the whole thing. Apply fill to entire object. This is just to apply it to the side, and this is just to apply it to the top. And this section down here controls what kind of fill it is. So the first one's flat color, which is a flat color like this. The second one is a gradient. So we've got some gradients already filled in here, but you can also add your own. So if I was to select that, it would enter a gradient onto the whatever view I've got selected up here. So if I wanted the side to be a different color, I could just do that. And you can control your gradient from here as well. You can actually add more colors like this, and modify what it looks like. These buttons down here will actually rotate the gradient as well. This button here will be a radial gradient, so it's just like the linear gradient, but it's radial, right? And you can actually move the center of the gradient around as well as change the width and height of it. And this final one here is an image. This will basically apply an image onto the side that you're selecting up here. So I've got the whole view selected and I've clicked on image, and then I can basically choose any image from the images library and it will apply that image to the cake like so. Selecting fill over here will make the image fit nicely from left to right basically. So when you have something selected and you click on the fill tool and you select images, and you can basically apply an image to the side of the cake. And if you change this to fill, it will fit nicely into the cake. But just bear in mind that when you change this to fill, you will lose the controls down here. So if I was to select tile, you'll see that some controls appear down here where I can actually change the size of the fill. Like this. And there's some other controls here that you can play around with. And there's also opacity. And over here you'll see color. So this section here will basically allow you to change the color of the different parts of this image. Okay, so if I chose the white area and I made it red, and make the black area white, like that. And just keep in mind also that this color option will only appear for vector-based images that we've added in ourselves, because they're modified in a certain way to be able to show you these color options here. So for example, if I was to add just a JPEG image, right, from the backgrounds, you would see that it would be entered here, but you would not have any color options available. Okay, so the color options only work with vector-based images that we've added in as system assets into Cakenote. Okay, and that's pretty much the fill tool for cakes. Let's say, for example, I select a decoration. And just like I've mentioned before, this is a decoration that we've added into Cakenote as a system asset. So it's been added in a certain way to allow for different sections in the image to be modified. So if I select the fill tool, you'll see here there's three different colors, and we can change those colors like this, as well as the outline as well. And just like before, we can add a linear gradient or a radial gradient to that, whatever we've selected up here. So I'll add a radial gradient to the petals here. So I'll select the pink area, I'll select radial gradient, and I will click on that. And it will bring up a radial gradient on the petals. So different decorations in Cakenote will have different number of layers. So just to show you an example, some of these ones have plenty of layers. So for example, this one here. If you click on the fill tool, you'll see there's a whole bunch of different colors up here, because we've added this asset into Cakenote in that way. This button here is basically an opacity tool, so I can select any object and change its opacity like that. So it's basically see-through. This one here is a shadow tool. So I'll add in shadow to this, and I can modify the shadow like so. Let's make it more darker. To remove a shadow, you can just click on the remove shadow button there. This tool here is the outline tool. So whatever object I've got selected, it will allow me to change the outline for that object. So it's not working for this one because this actually doesn't have an outline. The outline is the different layer in the actual image. So if I was to select a cake, I can actually select the outline here and change the outline like that. As you can see, it's become red. You can also make it transparent. This button here is the image effects tool, and it will only work if you've got a JPEG image selected, so none of these objects will work. It'll say please select an image first. So I'm just going to go to the images library and add a JPEG image. So it has to be an actual JPEG or PNG file type of image. It won't work with vector images. So if I select on this one, for example, I'll just make this smaller. Click on the image effects tool and you'll see a whole bunch of options appear here, which allow you to change the way that that image is displayed. I won't go too much into detail with this. I'll probably make other videos specifically for these tools. This button here is to add text to the canvas. So it basically just adds a text box to the canvas that you can write any text you want. To change it, it says double click to edit me, so I'll double click and write something else. And when you've got a text box selected, you will see another panel appear here, which allows you to change some options for that text box, like font. We have a bunch of different fonts here that you can use. There's also bold, italic, underline, and of course alignment options, and separation of letters. And finally we have a properties panel. This panel will basically display information about the selected object usually related to pricing and things like that. So if I was to select this cake here and select the properties panel, I can also add a flavor from here to the cake, because the properties panel will change depending on what's selected. So right now it knows that I've selected a cake. That's why it's giving me the option to select a flavor for this cake. And I can also add coatings and extra work just for this cake. Again, I don't want to go too much into detail with these things because I'll be covering those in another video. Also important to say that not all objects will have options in the properties panel. For example, if I select this decoration and I click the properties panel, you'll see nothing appears here. That's because this particular decoration doesn't have any options to change. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up this video. We've gone through all the different canvas tools around the perimeter of the canvas. If you need any help with any of these tools or anything that I've shown you here, just contact us through our contact form on our website, or you can use the chat widget down here within the app, and I will try and help you as best I can. Thank you for watching.